Thanks so much. Did anyone see Greg's talk last night on Tech Off? On how to kill a PowerPoint, and that every time you use a bullet point, a kitten dies.
Did you kill some kittens?
I hate kittens. So we're going to talk a little bit about creating workflows for sustainable link building, and I agree with almost everything that Philly said, but it's always good to have a bit of controversy. So we're going to go through some of the things that I think are important, and some of the things that I use for link building myself. And given what Philly said, you might be forgiven for thinking, well, does link building for SEO still matter? And it's important to ask that question, I think, on a regular basis, because one day it may not matter. Maybe it won't matter for ranking, and we should all go home. But right now, it does still matter for rankings. And third-party research includes Stone Temple, Eric Engie, and Mark Traphagen, who did some research last year to try and see if there's a correlation between good links and rankings. And for the best will in the world, Google still does say this every now and then. So Andrei Lipitsev, who's a Google engineer out of Russia, I believe, said it last year, that links, content, and rank brain are still the three top ranking signals for Google's search algorithm. It was a year ago, things may have changed. It's still there. And of course, Gary, is Gary in the room yet? He's already told me I'm going to get a 90-day penalty for this shirt anyway. So I'll blame him. So Gary said that in October 2016, but he's not always so clear. But he did say earlier this year, did you know that 18 years after we're still using PageRank? So it's still there. I absolutely agree with Philly and what's going forward, but the PageRank algorithm is still there, out of the horse's mouth. I know Philly used to work at Google as well, so, but it's still in there. So you can go and have a look at it from his tweet. It's the original algorithm, which is Stanford's, not Google's, by the way. But then just earlier this month, I saw this one. This is a light. Yeah. So Gary said it's impossible for you to check which links are actually deemed critical. And I think this is quite interesting, and this is something that's happened over the last few years, is that Google really doesn't pay attention to much unless it has to be a good link. And it's very difficult as a human being to know for sure why it's there. So that was picked up by Murat Yetagan, who I don't know, but he said, look, you can find it on Ahrefs, you can get some data. And he said, yeah, you can get the data, but you can't tell for sure what's a really good link. And I thought what I'd do is explore that a little bit and show you why it's very difficult to do that. And then just after that, go on to how I go and approach link building. So October 2016, September this year, links are still getting mentioned, so they're still valuable. And when I put the presentation together, I took a whole load of data that was out of another project, which was Buzzsumo's. Unfortunately, I had to put all this stuff out to the bottom, so I've got it after the last slide. So if you want to go and see these link building ideas and examples of them, then email talk@majestic.com with Brighton Talk. And if I set up my Outlook right, it'll send you the presentation. Okay. How many people are SEOs that have had this question asked of them? Come on. Honestly. How many links is enough? And I bet we all say, it depends. It depends. Because we can't give them a definitive answer that they're going to understand. But the reason is, of course, that links have wildly different strengths. However you measure strength, whether you term strength as a proximity to somebody buying your product, as a proximity to your brand evaluation, as a proximity to your rankings boost, whatever it may be, they've got wildly different strengths. So if you imagine the internet as all of these little dots are different pages on the internet, and this is the whole internet in a pyramid, the vast majority of pages are really not very valuable. And to get yourself up the ladder, is very, very difficult because there's very, very few web pages that are very, very powerful. So every time you try and get your website stronger, to get over a level, you're going to have to beat a lot more pages each time. And really, you've got to be at the top of the pyramid to have a page that is valuable. The other thing that makes it very difficult for us as SEOs to analyze is that internal links affect the strength of a website quite a bit as well. I will come on to that in a moment. But of course, we can estimate page strength. And yes, you shouldn't dwell too much on the PageRank algorithm, but that's what's used to estimate page strength. And we can estimate it. We can do it through Moz, with Page Authority, Majestic Citation Flow, Google's PageRank. They all are basis for measuring the page strength. So once you do that, you get some slightly different information. So this is pages that, it's quite a while back, that were ranking for the word majestic. And whilst we could see that there was some kind of correlation in the strengths of those pages, not necessarily entirely correlated, because there's context and other factors, of course, as well. There's no real correlation between the strength of the page, based on links, and the actual number of links on the page. So that one at the top, 21,000 links to it. This one, at number 3, 38 links. So it becomes quite quickly obvious that you can't correlate link counts with ranking data. We've got one down there at 150. And another way of visualizing this is by saying, well, if page A links to page B, links to page C, links to page B, then some of the love from page A goes all the way to page B. So if you take that page A, even though that's got 2 links into it, you can just see from this as a sort of simplified web, the page A is probably a lot more powerful than page B because of its proximity to the center of the universe. If these are all the web pages about the same topic, you see what I mean? But there's another factor as well, and it's one that we as SEOs have pretty much ignored, and it's a problem because we haven't really been able to see it. The problem for SEOs is that if this is a web page on a website which we'll call red, and it's linking out to you, and it's a good page, well, from that information, we think that this is a good page. And the content on there may be really good. And it may be contextually relevant, and it should be contextually relevant. However, the reason we can't tell what it's going to do is because it could be linking to 3 other web pages. And unless you know that information, in which case you've got to go back and have a look at it, then that becomes a little more problematic, because now your information is slightly less valuable than if it was just linking to you and if it was all about you. But then that gets more complicated because, of course, the page links to itself, it links to other pages within the site, and those internal factors are relevant. And if you saw Feely's Google PageRank algorithm there, nothing of that was at the domain level. There's no such thing as domain level PageRank. All the maths is done at the page level. And so if these internal links are all linking and dissipating all the information out to other parts of the website, then again, this link to you becomes much less valuable. And this has been a problem for SEOs for quite a while, I think. To Ahrefs' credit, they've shown half of this for a while. And they've shown a link coming into you. They'll show the external number of links on that page. So WooRank linked to Majestic with also 2 links to 23 other pages. And they were ahead of us for a long time. We've now finally, for God's sake, got to the same thing, and we've also added the internal link counts as well. So you've got some information that hopefully will take you another step down that route. And if you want to try it, you're welcome downstairs. So, back to the original question. What am I doing from time? We're not too bad, okay. How many links is enough? The other answer you can give to your customer that asks you this is actually 1's enough, or even 0. And that's using exactly the same methodology that we've talked about, entirely true. You can have 0 external links to a page and it will rank. And it will rank for exactly the same maths that we've just seen. It doesn't mean that links don't matter. Links still matter in that ranking algorithm. So, having said all that, the way that I get links really follows exactly the mantra that feeling goes out. Because I don't think manipulating links is a good strategy, and it's certainly not a sustainable strategy if you're going to get links from all sorts of random locations. I take 5 straightforward steps. I identify the right influencers. I try and engage with those people in a meaningful way. I then define the digital asset, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I then prepare a launch, and then monitor results. I'm not going to show you about monitor results. I've got some tools for that. But start with identifying the relevant influencers. How many people are in-house SEOs working for one company? Most of you. How many people are agencies? Actually, it's just a lot of people in the room, aren't there? So I think for in-house SEOs, it can be easier, but the problem is if you're an introverted in-house SEO, it's not so easy. Because at least you should know who the influencers are in your industry. And you should have some kind of mental idea within your industry as to who's really, really important as a connector, as a person that can talk about your product or your business meaningfully. It's much harder for agencies, because agencies often get flown in to industry sectors they don't know. And unless you've got a long-term contract with that company, then it could be quite difficult, because you need to first build a set of influencers. One way is Buzzsumo. I like Buzzsumo quite a lot. So I typed in Brighton. It's come up with 287 influencers around the word Brighton. I like it because I can filter by journalists or by influencers or just real proper people, you know. And the other thing I like is that you see the Twitter profile, but you also see the mouthpiece, the website that they tend to be influential on. So you can then use that to give you some idea beyond just the person as to whether they've got a place where you can hopefully get mentioned and whether it's relevant to your business as well. So I like that. You can also use Hub Finder tool. So Clique Hunter is, before I go there, anyone heard of this? Who knows this guy? So Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote Blink and Outliers, he describes people as either mavens, connectors, or salespeople. The influencers are the connectors. You in this relationship should never be the salesperson. If you're the salesperson, you failed at day one. You're a maven, I suppose. You're trying to eventually end up with the story. You want the connector to talk about you, but if you end up as a salesperson, this isn't going to work for you. So you can also the other way I put in 10 websites that are influential for the word Brighton, and then you can find all the websites in the world that link to more than one of those. So if those are ones that rank in Google, if that's what you want to do with this stuff, then at least these links aren't hurting that ranking. So you get some idea. You should still go and have a look at those links, but if they're linking to more than one influential site about a particular topic, the chances are they'll have an opening or a reason to talk about other people in the same industry sector, if you're any good. Okay. So my tools, Buzzsumo, Clique Hunter I like. The connection is then really, really important, because the way that you connect with somebody has to be on their terms. I love LinkedIn. I think it's great because I've got a lot of information about each other. It has to be a two-way relationship, and that's good. Email is okay, it's good, because of course, you know, it's still a direct relationship, but the problem is, you know, people tend to ignore emails if they start to go out of kilter a little bit. So that's only good if you've built up a fairly good relationship already. Facebook is okay because it's still a two-way relationship quite a lot. But Twitter is definitely a stepping stone. I don't think you can build a proper meaningful relationship on Twitter. You can do it with direct messages, but really, probably Twitter is so transient in its messaging that you need to build up a deeper relationship, and it's a stepping stone to getting into a relationship with somebody. There are other ways, you know, Reddits and forums and many other ways where you've got these relationships that can work, and you've got to go in the places that they want to communicate in. Don't try and always force people down your way. So that's getting the connections. Engaging is the hardest part. It really is. Because it's all about networking. There's no other way to describe it. You have to network with people. You have to communicate. And it's chemistry. It's not about the tools. It's about your chemistry. And I mean, my favourite tool is beer for this, frankly. I find that very useful. But you've got to build up one-to-ones, you've got to build trust, you've got to be honest, and you've got to be sincere. And you need to do all of that before you start talking about yourself, really. But I know that people like to talk about tools, so for me, personally, I use Infusionsoft as my CRM, Sendable, which actually I didn't know they've got a standout there, which is kind of my way of communicating with influencers on social, and Outlook, as you've seen. And we've got some custom stuff at the back end as well. Other tools, if you are a Gmail user, I understand that this is pretty good for connecting up social profiles as well. So you can have a look at Reportive, Sendable, and the competitor product to Sendable will be Sprout Social, and they do a similar sort of thing if you want to try another one and compare. And if you want to find a different thing to Infusionsoft, HubSpot is probably the market leader in CRM systems. Salesforce is there as well. Okay. Third one, define the digital asset. Now the interesting thing here is that most people will write a piece of blog content and try and get the links to that content. And I think that this is the wrong way of thinking about what a digital asset is. Actually, content need not be the key. It doesn't have to be a page that you get links to. It's much, much better if you come up with something that is unique to your business, unique to you, unique to the world, preferably. You know, it may be an idea, it may be a product, it may be a process, but it's not a URL, really. It's a thing. And whether people link to a URL on your site or they talk about the idea, it's all heading in the same direction. It's all heading in the same direction. And I think that this is quite hard for SEOs to get their head around because they're not necessarily at the process end of the business. They're at the SEO end of the business and they're looking at keyword research and stuff instead of looking at what it is that's going to be innovative in the business moving forward. But if you've got an innovative idea, process, product, your world is so much better. Your world is so much better because you don't have competition. You're creating the market that you're moving into. Does that make sense? However, that doesn't mean to say that you don't want to give them the opportunity to link to you. So prep the launch. So you've got the people, you know who they are, they actually trust you. They're only going to trust you if you give them something decent like a new business idea, a new process, new product. They're not going to trust you if you just give another 60 ways to tie a bow tie. But you do need to prepare the announcement. And so we prepare the announcement ourselves. So I write my intention of the blog post. I then write, I say a press release. It's kind of like a breakdown for the person so that they can see it and so they can grab some bits and pieces, maybe a few screenshots, that sort of thing for me. Send that through to them before it. So they've got the information before the general public. Certainly you send it way before you send your newsletter out for the month. Because these are the influencers. These are the connectors. They can only remain influential if they continue to be the first guys with the news, the first guys with the ideas. If you debase them by saying, hey, last week we sent this out and it was all great, but you didn't mention it, you know, in inverted commas underneath, then they're not going to mention it because they're then talking about second-hand news, and they don't want to do that. They get their buzz out of being the first to announce things or pretty close to the first to announce things. So send them the announcement before everybody else. Everybody does it. Apple does it brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly. They'll send them out. In fact, what they'll do is they'll invite them to their headquarters and sit them all down to 10,000 at a time. Tell them the link and the exact time of the launch. So we say, look, we're going to launch it, preferably 10:45 tomorrow if we can. You know, things may go wrong, but this is what's happening. And so they've got a pretty good idea. We do tell them the link. We don't tell them whether they have to link to us or not. We want them to talk about the idea and the process. But I do try and remind them when it's live because they do have a tendency to forget. So some people will sit there and prepare their blog posts and not want to put it out before it's actually gone live. And then if I don't tell them, then they're again going to be looking a little delayed on their influence and their talking and their presenting. So that's it. It's not that difficult except for the fact that the engaging is really, really hard and you can't get around it, I don't think. So when you do your next thing, I'll leave you with this. Is it going to be new, authoritative, unique? Is it going to be yours to give? But finally, for the world, make it valuable. Thank you.